everything, every tear, every year of pain, every mile of running, it all came down to this one day. The day the boy who could not walk would finally meet the king who could not be killed. The place was called Kirina. On one side of the wide open field stood the army of the Sorcerer King, thousands of soldiers, cold, cruel, sure that they would win just like they always did. And on the other side stood the army of the Lion. Sundiata sat on his horse at the front of his men. Behind him were the warriors of many lands, all standing together as one. Farmers, hunters, kings, fathers and sons, all of them there for one reason: to be free. The wind blew across the field. The drums began to beat, slow at first, then faster and faster. The horses stamped the ground. Hands gripped their spears tightly. And then Sundiata raised his sword high into the sky, and the great Battle of Kirina began. The two armies rushed toward each other like two giant waves crashing together. The sound was like thunder. Dust rose up into the sky until you could barely see the sun. Arrows flew, spears clashed, men shouted. It was the biggest, fiercest battle the land had ever seen. And in the middle of all that chaos, Sundiata had only one goal. He was not looking for just any soldier. He was searching the whole battlefield for one man, the sorcerer, Soumaoro. Soumaoro was there too, and he was fighting the way he always fought, without any fear, because why should he be afraid? No arrow had ever cut him, no blade had ever touched him. He rode through the battle like a storm, sure that no one on this earth could stop him. Then, across the smoke and the dust, the two of them saw each other, the lion and the sorcerer. Soumaoro laughed. He had beaten every king who ever dared to face him, and now here was this Sundiata, this boy who was once a cripple, this son of the buffalo woman, daring to stand against him. To Soumaoro, it was almost funny. He raised his own weapon and charged straight at Sundiata, ready to end him, ready to win one more time. But Sundiata did not run, and Sundiata was not afraid. Slowly, calmly, he reached back for his bow, and onto that bow he placed a single, special arrow, a small arrow, a plain-looking arrow, an arrow tipped with the spur of a pure white rooster, the one thing in all the world that the sorcerer feared. Sundiata lifted the bow. He pulled the string back with all his strength. He took a slow, deep breath, and he aimed straight at the man who could not be killed. And then he let the arrow fly. The little arrow shot through the air, spinning, flying straight and true, over the heads of the fighting soldiers, straight toward the great and terrible Soumaoro, and it struck him. For the very first time in his whole life, something touched the Sorcerer King, and in that single moment, everything changed. Soumaoro felt his power leaving his body. He felt his magic pouring out of him like water from a broken pot. The dark strength that had protected him for so many years was gone. Suddenly, he was not a sorcerer anymore. Suddenly, he was just a man. His eyes went wide with fear. He looked at his own hands, and he could not believe it. His power was dead, and now, for the first time ever, Soumaoro was afraid. He turned his horse, and he ran. The great king who had made whole kingdoms tremble, the man who had chained thousands of people, now ran away from the battlefield like a frightened animal. He rode away faster and faster, up into the far hills, and there, deep in the mountains, the Sorcerer King vanished into the shadows, and he was never, ever seen again. When Soumaoro's soldiers saw that their king had run away, their hearts broke, their courage melted, and without their master, they scattered like leaves in the wind. The battle was over. Sundiata had won. The field of Kirina went quiet, and then, slowly, a great roar rose up from Sundiata's army, a roar of joy, a roar of freedom. They had done it. They had beaten the king that no one could beat. The chains were broken, the sorcerer was gone, and the people were free at last. Grown men fell to their knees and wept. Strangers hugged one another. The drums which had beaten for war now beat for celebration. And in the middle of it all stood Sundiata, the Lion of Mali, the boy who was once thrown away, now the man who had saved a whole nation. But Sundiata did not stop there. Winning the war was only the beginning. You see, Sundiata knew that beating an enemy was not enough. He wanted to build something strong, something that would last long after he was gone. So the great kings and leaders of all the lands came together in one place, and there they did something wonderful. They chose Sundiata to be their leader, not just the king of one small land, but the king of kings, the ruler over all of them. They gave him a special title. They called him Mansa. It meant King of Kings. And on that day, a brand new empire was born, the Great Mali Empire. But Sundiata did not rule like Soumaoro. He did not rule with fear and chains. No, he remembered what it felt like to be laughed at. He remembered what it felt like to be weak and poor and pushed aside. So he became a wise and fair king. He and the other leaders made a set of great rules, rules to protect the people, rules to care for the poor, rules to stop cruelty and to keep the peace between all the different families and lands. It was one of the first times in history that people came together to write down laws to protect one another. And it happened right there in the heart of Africa, hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Under Sundiata, Mali grew and grew and grew. It became huge. It became peaceful. It became one of the richest and most powerful empires in the entire world. Mali had gold, more gold than almost anywhere else on earth. Its cities became famous. Its markets were full. Its people were safe. And this mighty empire that Sundiata built from nothing would one day give the world the richest man who ever lived, a king so wealthy that his gold amazed the whole world. His name was Mansa Musa, and he came from the empire that Sundiata Keita began. But it all started with one small boy. A boy with weak legs who crawled in the dust, a boy his own people once called cursed, a boy who could not even stand and whose own mother wept over him in the dark. That same boy rose to his feet. He lifted iron. He carried trees. He lost his mother. He wandered in exile. He came home. He beat a sorcerer no one could beat, and he built one of the greatest empires the world has ever known. Sundiata Keita, the Lion King of Mali. He showed us something we must never forget. It doesn't matter how you start. It doesn't matter if the whole world laughs at you. It doesn't matter if they call you weak or cursed or nothing. What matters is that you rise. What matters is the fire inside you that refuses to give up. And that, my friends, is the story of Sundiata Keita, a king, a hero, a legend. One of the greatest men who ever lived that far too much of the world has forgotten. But not us, not here, because here, on Chronicle of the Forgotten, we remember. If this story moved you, give it a like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe so that together we can keep telling the stories the world forgot. Until next time,
This has been the story of the Lion King of Mali. The end.